I'm Dale Chrystie. I'm Business Fellow and Blockchain Strategist for FedEx, headquartered in Memphis. I lead the blockchain efforts and the Web3 efforts for FedEx, and I have since 2017. In 2017, we were trying to solve a quality issue, a three-party quality issue, where the shipper and the receiver and the carrier were all talking past each other from a data point of view. And we experimented with blockchain, and we realized that we were really speaking past each other. We were talking different languages, and we realized that that would be something that could actually solve for that. And it led to kind of my aha moment at the time, which was, this is a peer-to-peer technology, which means that if you and I can find each other and do so in a trusted environment, we may no longer need somebody like a ride-sharing app or a home or a room sharing app or something like that sitting between us, sitting between supply and demand. And so if you and I can find each other and do so in a trusted environment, such as blockchain, Web3, that could be transformative. So when you think of a company like FedEx going to 220 countries and territories, that's a lot of people that sit between you and me when I order something from you or buy something from you. That's a broker and a forwarder and a brother-in-law, and I know some lady, and all these people that sit between us. And that becomes fairly transformative. If I buy something from you across a border or across an ocean, right now you have to hand that data over to multiple people to get it through the import process at the border. If we had trusted data, you could now provide that trusted data or an anonymized link to that trusted data directly to the government, directly to, in this case, US Customs or somebody else from that point of view. And now that creates essentially a progressive clearance process. Rather than this pinch point at the border where everything is getting stacked up, and we saw that in the pandemic, now it is actually starting to clear as soon as you ship it, long before it gets to the border. And that frees up supply chains, that frees up borders, and it essentially reduces friction across borders. And we all win if that's the case. Well, Web 1 was the very first iteration in the late 80s, before 90. And basically it was read-only. You could simply point to something and read a document. Web 2 came around about 15 years later in the early 2000s, and it allowed us to both read and write. Web 3, which is not quite 10 years old from that point of view, allows us to both read and write, but also to own. So the current Web 2, there's no identity layer. That's why we all have passwords and lots of passwords, and we forget our passwords and we left them on a yellow sticky somewhere, etc. Web 3 you will have your own private data. You'll have your own private identity. You'll have your own shopping carts and your own wallet and your own online secure identity. And that's going to change a lot of things. That allows us to get to peer-to-peer. It allows you to have privacy. It allows you, if you're an artist, to own your own music. And it would potentially disrupt the whole record label model, those kinds of things. Or is this a coffee bean from that grower in that coffee company's ecosystem, and we can prove the provenance, the authenticity of that. So that's a very different layer. That's a very different experience that we're coming forward. And everybody is going to want to know the authenticity of their products, whether it's a sustainable product, whether it's a carbon footprint discussion, whether it's are these sustainable clothes, or is this a conflict-free diamond, or is this a Rolex that's authentic, or a Gucci bag, or other types of things. There's a lot of things that people are going to simply want to know, is that authentic and can you prove it? Don't learn the technology. We don't need to turn you into a technologist. You're a C-suite person. You do what you do, and we need to speak your language, and we've spent a lot of time not doing that. We've not done a good job of that over the years. We've tried to explain peer-to-peer technology and smart contracts and all kinds of things like that. But if you're in the C-suite, your job is risk and opportunity and fiduciary responsibilities, and we need to speak at your language. So if I could help you understand, we could reduce your accounts receivables by X number of days. Would that be of interest to the CFO? I think it would. And the CFO at that point would simply look through their normal business processes and look to the CIO and say, well, do you have anybody who can code those smart contracts? And the chief legal officer, do you have attorneys who are bilingual, who are fluent in both paper contracts and smart contracts? So we need to do it. The true north of this is their business process, is their risk and opportunity. And they need somebody helping them understand what is the technology and why should I care? But if you and I can find each other and do so in a trusted environment moving forward, that's going to disrupt a lot of business models. So if you approach this from a position of, well, we're pretty big, that's probably not a good position to be in, because the model is changing. And you need somebody to help you learn about that and bring it back to you and say, look, here's what I've learned about this and here's how it can apply to our company. And therefore, looking forward, we think our company is actually going to look different. And therefore, disrupt or be disrupted, you get both sides of that. You can, if you jump in there and learn early, you can get out in front of somebody else. And if you're late and simply say, well, we're pretty conservative, we don't do things like that, you may not like where that puts you. So to tie that one off, what value do we provide tends to be a really big question moving forward. Yeah, it's a foreign language, but learn it. Jump into it. Your job in the C-suite is risk and opportunity, fiduciary. You need somebody learning this on your behalf. Doesn't mean you have to change your values, doesn't mean you have to change anything like that. What it means is this is something new and we need to embrace it. Before somebody jumps over the top of us and disrupts us, especially if you're in a role essentially as a traditional middleman. If you sit between supply and demand, just know that this technology may allow supply and demand to meet without you introducing them.